Well, let's return to our top story, the coup in Niger.
The coup inside Niger.
Lights from Niger.
In Niger's capital,
Niger.
On Wednesday morning of July 26, 2023, President Mohamed Bazoum is sitting in his office when members of his own presidential guard, commanded by General Abdurrahman Chani, detains him. Later in the day, Chani goes on national television proclaiming the creation of the National Council of the Safeguard of the Homeland.
Cela fait suite à la dégradation continue de la situation sécuritaire, la mauvaise gouvernance économique et sociale.
But to understand the gravity of this situation, we need to go beyond the headlines. First, let's talk history. Niger has seen its fair share of political instability since gaining independence from France in 1960. The country has experienced several coups throughout its history. President Bazoum's election in 2021 was seen as a rare, peaceful transition of power, as it was the first ever democratic transition of power. So why did things unravel so quickly? Niger is one of the poorest countries in the world. It ranks at the bottom of the Human Development Index, with rampant poverty, limited infrastructure, and widespread lack of access to basic services. Niger is at a strategic geographic point for Western countries, garnering interest from countries like the US and France. This is because Niger is located in the heart of the Sahel, a region that has become a battleground for jihadist insurgency and is ranked the worst region in the world for terrorism, accounting for over half of all deaths from terrorism in the world. Groups like Boko Haram and ISIS operate across its borders, terrorizing local populations and creating a constant state of insecurity.
Jihadism is an ideology that promotes extremist interpretations of Islam and seeks to impose their version of the Islamic law.
Western countries have military bases here to monitor the security of the region. Niger is the largest recipient of the U.S. State Department military assistance in West Africa and the second largest in sub-Saharan Africa. Niger's $14 billion economy depends heavily on foreign support, as external partners supplied 48% of Niger's budget for 2023.
Also, Niger is rich in uranium, a critical resource for nuclear energy, and has increasingly large oil deposits, which is extracted by the China National Petroleum Corporation. Experts believe the coup was a power grab by Chani. Reports emerged that Bazoum was seeking to replace him. Another factor is the growing dissent towards France, their colonial ruler. Supporters of the coup criticized political leaders for their ties with France during protests. This coup was not an isolated incident. It is part of a broader pattern of political instability in the Sahel, a region plagued by coups across the past years.
But how has the coup affected the country? The government in Niger has shifted from a democratic government to an authoritarian-controlled government, which has since dissolved the old constitution and closed all borders. Former President Bazoum, along with his wife, have remained locked in the presidential residence since the coup began 10 months ago. Inside his detainment, he has no access to sunlight, the internet, or his lawyers, and is being watched by guards 24/7. In the time since the coup, the new government has unjustly tightened restrictions on independent media. Journalists in Niger now face violence, surveillance, and intimidation from the government for any news unapproved. A Nigerian journalist, Samira Sabu, was arrested on September 30th, 2023 by unidentified men. This all occurred after the government attempted to intimidate her for covering topics related to the coup and former President Bazoum.
4 days after the coup, ECOWAS, a supranational organization of Western Africa states, issued an ultimatum giving coup leaders 1 week to reinstate Bazoum. When the deadline expired, ECOWAS activated a standby force of military troops and instated economic sanctions that freeze all commercial and financial transactions between its member states in Niger. Burkina Faso and Mali announced that they would send troops to Niger in support of the military junta, creating the Alliance of Sahel States.
In January, these three states announced via a joint statement that they were withdrawing from ECOWAS.
The EU, along with other countries, have frozen their financial support and aid, which is detrimental to an economy that relies on foreign support.
The ECOWAS sanctions have disrupted Niger's food imports, triggering a spike in prices for basic commodities. The landlocked state brings in most of its imports by road, particularly by Benin in Nigeria. The sanctions have largely put a halt to this trade, as well as humanitarian aid and electricity supplies from Nigeria, which was meeting over 2/3 of domestic demand. The new government claims to be reclaiming their self-determination free from Western neocolonialism. Amidst this, French and U.S. troops have been pushed out, signaling a shift in Niger's foreign policy. France pulled all 1,500 troops out last year, finally removing their colonial presence. The U.S. has said that it will pull all troops by mid-September, which is a blow to their foreign presence as they recently built a $100 million military base. Germany and Italy have also repatriated soldiers. The exit of foreign militaries limits the amount of security provided by these Western countries. As Western forces exit, a new player enters the scene. The Russian oligarch mercenary group Wagner has sent soldiers to Niger.
Делает Россию еще более великой на всех континентах, а Африку еще более свободной.
Nigerians have been showing support for the Russians, waving Russian flags during protests. The new instability presents an opportunity for jihadist groups to expand their influence in Niger, strategically located in the Sahel, the most dominant region in the world for terrorism right now. Niger is ranked the 10th highest on the GTI rankings. After the coup, deaths from terrorism doubled the amount. Niger claimed the second most fatal terrorist attack of last year, claiming 200 people's lives. The only attack with more fatalities was the Hamas attack of Israel. The coup in Niger has drastically altered the nation's political and economic landscape, shifting from democracy to authoritarianism while escalating instability and insecurity as foreign aid freezes and sanctions are imposed. Western troops withdraw and jihadist groups gain ground amidst the entrance of Russian mercenaries.